But what's weirder than just sitting in the Wendy's is that 15 minutes later, she leaves the Wendy's through the front entrance and then turns directly around and walks right back into it and then goes out the back entrance. Hi, I'm Chansey.
And I'm Lila.
And this is for Criming Out Loud.
Welcome to this week's episode. And by way of starting, I have some correction to do from my last episode because
Ooh.
I realized after we released the episode, or at least edited the episode and had already done all the work, that there was a slight thing that I said that was incorrect and was related to one of the questions that you asked, Chansey. And so, because you asked about Paul Jepson and his disappearance and whatnot, and like how far his house was from the road where his scent disappeared and all that jazz. And well, I found this article from a newspaper that was published at this time, and I had never actually seen where Paul Jepson had disappeared from. So I had assumed that it meant their house. And I should never have assumed such a thing.
You know what assuming does.
Because I just was like, if they're not stating where he is, I'm going to just say that he's at his house. They were actually at the local dump, the Bennington dump. Which makes sense that I wouldn't have assumed that because she was taking care of the pigs.
Which are there pigs on this dump?
I don't actually understand what that meant. So I don't know. But
maybe that's just one of those things that happens in like old-timey rural places.
Yeah,
there's just pigs at the dump.
Maybe.
Cool stuff.
Anyway, so yeah, they were at the dump, and according to this source that I'm going to believe because it's a legitimate news article from the area and the time, the dump was an area of about 5 acres that was fenced in within a 50-acre wooded section. Which makes it actually, honestly, a little bit more weird that he disappeared.
I mean, yes,
and was able to find a road. Because, like, I guess at that point he would have to have, like, exited the dump past the entrance, which you would think people would be there. You know what I mean?
I mean, maybe. Or maybe it's just one of those open source dumps.
Yeah.
You just drive in and dump it and then leave.
But, anywho, because, like, in my mind I was like, oh, he's just, like, bushwhacking it to this road, but I don't think he bushwhacked it through like 50 acres of woods.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's your update.
That's weird.
That kind of paints a clearer picture for you of his disappearance, I guess. And just for my own conscience, so that I didn't feel like I was leading people astray with false knowledge.
False information.
So, there you have it.
All right. There we have it. It's good to know. I'm still confused about his disappearance because I just don't even... I think it's one of those things you'd have to, like, Google Maps it and then do that thing where it's like you get the street view and they drop a little dude and then you see it Google Earth style.
Yeah,
I feel like that's how you'd have to do it.
Makes sense, but even then it doesn't make sense.
But
so
we can't travel back in time, so it is what it is. Cool stuff. So today we're going to talk about the disappearance of Mekayla Bali. And I just want to say this just as a random tangent at the beginning here. Her name is not spelled the way I have ever seen the name Mekayla spelled in my life. And having to type it over and over again in my notes was basically, it was torture. Because no matter what I did, I could not spell it right. And Google kept saying, "Do you mean this?" And no, I don't mean that. I meant Mekayla. Anyways, that was
Spelled
just
like so. How does she
spelled.
spell it?
It's not even that different, but it's Mekayla. And something
Meh.
about meh, and then the name
Meh.
Kayla.
Kayla.
Yeah, which
Not
is
muh.
fine,
It's Mekayla.
but
Mekayla,
something about it just
not
really messed
Mekayla.
with my brain. Because
Okay.
Mekayla, I don't even know how you normally spell Mekayla, but that's not it. I'll tell you that. Anyways, it looks kind of cool, but it just wasn't working in my brain. Anyways, so if I end up saying something that's not Mekayla, it's probably because I typed in Mekayla or something on accident. It's my fault. Anyways, so let's get into it. Mekayla was 16 years old and she was a junior in high school when she went missing in 2016. So this one's like a little bit more on the recent side if we're talking
All
about
right.
it's in this century, which a lot of our cases are not. So,
True.
just a little background on Mekayla. She's from Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. I really
Saskatchewan. That was
Saskatchewan.
good. That was good.
I had to really work on that. Anyways, she's from good old Canada.
That name sounds like one of those names that I have to like not actually look at the word. I just have to remember what it sounds like because if I look at the word, I can't pronounce it
That's
because it has
literally
no
exactly what
spelling
happened.
anything. Yeah.
I was like, I specifically blurred my eyes over so I couldn't read the letters because I was like, I know what it is, I just can't
I
read
just
it.
can't look at the word.
It's
Yeah.
it is kind of Saskatchewan, but I would have probably said Saskatchewan instead. Anyways,
Saskatchewan, huh?
Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Okay.
so Mekayla is from good old Canada. She grew up living with her mother, aunt, grandmother, and siblings in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, which is like a little ways outside of Regina. They just call it Regina because, it's like when you live in a big city, but you live in the suburb, you still live in the big city. You still say you're from
Yeah.
wherever. Anyways, it's like that. Yorktown only had like 16,000 people. It was like a, typical suburb of a city. So her mother worked as a consultant for the Ministry of Social Services. And according to Mekayla's mother, Mekayla was shy and quiet. She played the violin. She was part of the drama club in her high school. Her friends said that she was very caring and aware of her friends' needs. And her mom said that she was occasionally bullied because of her acne, which is just so sad.
Oh,
Because,
everybody goes through that at that
yeah,
age.
I had really bad acne, so I can totally relate to that. I mean, I
Well, and
never
if
got
they
bullied, but
don't, like you get it later, like
yeah,
young adult.
yep, yep.
Honestly, it's best if you have it in high school. Freaking get it out of the
Yeah.
way.
I was like, I've had it like way longer than just high school. So I can see how that's like something that's hard, but it sucks that people bullied her about it when literally like 99% of people get
Look
acne.
in the mirror, you
So
fools.
yeah. But her mom said that despite everything, she felt that Mekayla was like really starting to hit her stride. So she felt like things were
Oh, that's
going
good.
okay. Um, but on April 12th, Mekayla's story would kind of become a big question mark because things did not seem to be just dandy like her mom thought they were. So, on April 12th, her mom said it was just like any other ordinary morning. Everybody got up, got their day started, and then went to school or to work or wherever. And her grandma, Mekayla's grandma, actually dropped Mekayla off at school that morning and then just like went about her day and everything was normal. And then later in the afternoon, she went back to the school to pick Mekayla up, but Mekayla wasn't there. And she was like, huh,
Hmm.
that's weird. She's usually here because why wouldn't she be? So she went inside and she found out that Mekayla had not attended any of her classes that day. She hadn't even been seen at the school basically all day. And obviously, her grandmother was immediately worried. And so she called Mekayla's mother and was like, something's going on. Mekayla's not been in school all day. And so the two women decided to just start looking for her themselves. But they couldn't find her anywhere. She had seemingly just vanished, and they didn't know what had happened. So they called the police that evening, the evening of April 12th, 2016, and they reported her missing. And police started trying to figure out where she could be. And luckily, because this is 2016, there are cameras everywhere.
Every which where.
Every which where. So they were able to like basically track all of her movements that day, which were weird, and we're going to get into it in just a second. And they were also able to access some of her phone records, like text messages she sent, phone calls she made, blah, 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 all that stuff. So when they put all of that information together, it painted a really weird picture. So here's what they learned about what Mekayla did on the day of April 12th. So, at 6:41 a.m. on April 12th, Mekayla sent a text to a friend asking for a ride to the local bank. But her friend said no because the bank was closed. So she
Yeah.
wasn't going to do that.
It's weird.
um,
Okay.
this was a little weird because she'd asked that same friend on the previous day to take her to the bank. And the friend said no. So she'd asked twice in the span of about 24 hours to be taken to the bank by the same friend. And it had not happened. So that's just a little weird. Another thing to note is that her friends mentioned a few things related to this bank money situation that were kind of weird. Her friend said that in the days before her disappearance, she'd claimed to have like $5,000 in her bank account. And she was just like talking about it with people, like with her friends. Which police looked into, and she had never had $5,000 in her bank account. So they didn't understand what she was saying or why she was saying it. And she'd also been telling all of her friends that she was going to be traveling soon. Like she's talking about all the places she wanted to go visit. So right off the bat,
Strange. Yeah.
it almost seems like she's gearing up to run off, right? Because that's the vibe I
Yeah.
got from
Yeah.
the very beginning.
Exactly.
So, another weird thing to note, just like, I don't know why, because it doesn't end up being super relevant, but she did deposit like $25 into her bank account the day before she went missing. And then that evening on April 11th, the day before she went missing, she texted a few friends and said very vaguely that she was unhappy about something and that she needed help. And that was like it.
Was that like her literal words? I am unhappy about something?
That was just the vibe her friends got from the way she was talking about stuff.
Oh, okay.
Like that she needed help with something, but she wasn't being like specific or detailed about it, and that she seemed unhappy.
Okay.
That's all that
Okay.
her friends really got. So this had
Hmm.
all happened in the few days before she went missing. And then the morning she goes missing, she texts her friend again to take her to the bank, even though the bank is closed at this point because it's 6:30 in the morning and banks don't open until like 8. So,
Yeah, it's like strange to me. Like, what's the rush?
yeah, it
Like,
seems like
why?
something about it is urgent. She needs to get to the bank
But
urgently.
like, she's not asking her parents, so whatever it is, she
Exactly.
doesn't want her family to know.
Exactly. So, everything so far, it seems like she's running off for whatever reason. Um so there's that. So, that all happens. Her grandmother then drives her to school around 8:10 a.m. and drops her off. And there's a camera in the school that catches Mekayla in the halls of the school, putting her binder into her locker and then walking right back out the back door of the school. She like goes inside, she puts the binder in the locker, and then she's like sneaking out the back entrance of the school. She just dips.
Wait,
It's
you're
like
saying
less
this
than
is
10
like
minutes later.
right at the beginning of the day?
Yeah.
Like she gets to
By
school,
8:30, she's no
she's
longer at school.
dibs.
It's
Okay.
8:21, she gets dropped off. 8:30, she's gone. She's no longer in the school. So,
Okay.
surveillance cameras show her walking along the railroad tracks towards town, all the way into town. And then she goes to a local pawn shop called Terry's Pawn and Bargain. And she's there for about 10 minutes. And she offers to sell the clerk of the pawn shop a silver ring. And he says no because it's a cheap ring and he doesn't want to buy it.
Gee. So,
So,
why is she so desperate for money?
yeah, that's the question, isn't it? Um, I don't know. Well, I don't think we'll ever know. It's been too long. But the clerk did later tell police, like, she wanted to sell me something. I wasn't gonna give her any money because the value of the item was too low. And then CCTV footage shows her leaving the pawn shop and then going to the bank around 8:50 a.m. And she took out $55 from her bank account. Boom.
All
So
right.
she finally got to go to the bank. I guess she needed that $55 for something important. I don't know.
Yeah. A whole whopping 55.
A whole 55 bucks. It doesn't seem like that much money. I don't know how much money she actually had total. I don't know if that's all the money she had. I don't know what the story is. It never really says. But around 9 a.m., she walks through town and cameras catch her going into a local Tim Hortons / Wendy's. And she buys a drink and she just sits at a table and she stays there for like 15 minutes, just sitting there drinking whatever drink she got. So it's almost like she's waiting or like killing time or something because she's just like sitting
Yeah.
there. Like, I don't know
Like she got a
what.
rendezvous, but she's not. It ain't the right time yet, so she's just
Yeah, like she's just like
gonna
killing time in
chill.
the Wendy's.
But what's really interesting to me is like she's scrapping for money, and then she's
And then
like, I'm
she's
just gonna
buying
go buy a
Wendy's.
drink.
I
That's the
don't
part that's
know.
weird.
That's
I'm like, if
weird.
you're
It is
like,
weird.
if you're scrapping like your freaking jewelry that's worth basically nothing in the hopes of getting a few dollars, it seems weird that you'd go spend any amount of money.
At a Wendy's. Maybe she wanted to get a whole lunch combo and she only got a drink. I don't know.
That was that was her
I don't
compromise with herself.
know.
I can't
Maybe.
spend $12, but I can
Well,
spend two.
yeah, and that's not the first like time she spends money that day either on things that don't seem. Yeah, anyways, we'll get into it. But what's weirder than just sitting in the Wendy's is that 15 minutes later, she leaves the Wendy's through the front entrance and then turns directly around and walks right back into it and then goes out the back entrance into the
Like,
wooded
does
area
she
behind the
wait?
Wendy's.
Is she like in the Wendy's for a while? It's like literally
She,
she walks in one side, turns around, walks
yes.
back inside, walks out the
It's,
other side,
yeah, it's almost like she left the Wendy's, she saw somebody that
and
she
was
didn't
like,
want to see her,
"Oh,
and
never
then
mind."
turned right back around. That's the only thing I can think of is that she walked out, she was just chilling, she notices maybe it was her mom or her aunt or something, and she was like, boy, I don't want them to see me. Something like that. And she turned right back around, went into the Wendy's, and then went back out the back exit.
Could be
And
that.
then,
She also could have like thought she forgot something and like walked back in to be like, "Did I forget it?" And then she's like, "Oh, I'll just go out this side."
I mean, that's always possible, but I don't think so because what she does next is for the next half hour, she just walks in a wide circle around the Wendy's in like the wooded areas and stuff around the Wendy's. Kind of like she's waiting for somebody to leave or something, and then she goes back into the Wendy's 25 minutes later.
Huh?
Yeah, that's weird, right?
That's all I got. All I got is a very
What?
confused huh, cuz
Huh?
I don't what?
Yeah. So
But why is Wendy's even a central location?
I don't know. I don't
Like,
know.
what?
Why
Okay.
why this Tim Horton / Wendy's? I don't
Maybe
know.
she's spying on somebody there.
Yeah, maybe she's a teen
Just
spy.
keeping tabs.
It's just strange. It's
I
just
don't
really
know.
strange.
Okay, yeah, that's really weird.
So, yeah, she's literally just cameras catch her from like outside the Wendy's, just walking like around the perimeter of the Wendy's for like 25 minutes and then coming back in and sitting down. So she sits back down in the Wendy's. This time she doesn't order anything. She's just sitting at the table. She sits there. At this point, it's about 10 a.m. She sits there for about 20 minutes, and the whole time you can see her texting and calling on her phone. She's talking to somebody. Um, and one of the texts that she sent at 10:12 a.m. was to a friend, and it said, "Hey, I need help." And that was all she said. And then the friend never responded. So a few minutes later, she texted again and said, "Never mind, I figured it out." And that was that. After that, after she sent that text, she left the restaurant, she left the Wendy's, and then she came right back in to the Wendy's again and sat down for a minute. That's the third time she's left and come back. Okay.
What is up with this Wendy's? I'm so
Yeah. I don't
confused.
know.
And like I this is the thing. When they talked about the surveillance footage and how she's circling the Wendy's, is this circle big enough that somebody at Wendy's wouldn't see her? Or is she just like across the street and it's very obvious that she's freaking walking around Wendy's?
I don't think it was obvious because nobody noticed it. Nobody like it wasn't
It's
eyewitnesses
like
that were like
this
this girl
girl
was
is
walking
like
around the
just
Wendy's. They had to get
circling.
yeah, they had to get CCTV footage to figure out what she was doing. So she must have not been super obvious about it. It must have been like
Okay.
far enough away that nobody was really noticing her.
Okay, because in my mind, I'm like, she's like on the other side of the street, crossing, going around behind, and it's visible the whole time, but it's a bigger circle. Got it.
Yeah. And this isn't a huge area either. So there probably wasn't like a ton of people around in the middle of the morning.
Yeah,
Just
it's
you
true.
know what
It's
I
only
mean?
10
So,
a.m.
yeah. So, anyways, so she's back in the restaurant for like the third time, and at this point she approaches an older woman who's in the restaurant. This is about 10:45 a.m. And this woman later tells police that Mekayla asked her for help in renting a hotel room. And the woman said, "No."
No.
No. And then Mekayla left the restaurant after this conversation. So this is painting just a weird picture. So if you're planning on like the thing I don't understand is if you're planning on running off, why would you need to rent a hotel room in the town that you're running away from? Like it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. Honestly, the impression that I get overall at this point, I feel like she has stumbled across a cyber um, predator who has like lured her to a meeting spot and she's waiting to see somebody that matches that description. Like that's almost what it feels like. And like
I
they told
don't
her
think
like
you're
take all
wrong.
your stuff and run with me.
Yeah.
And now she's like she doesn't want maybe like at Wendy's somebody's there that she knows. She doesn't want to be seen with whoever she's supposed to be meeting up with. And
Yeah.
so she's trying to like watch the Wendy's but also not be seen.
Yeah, and I could totally
That's
see
my
that.
vibe.
It's just strange to me because the rest of what happens, like the rest of what she does is just weird. It's almost like all day she's killing time. That's literally what it seems like. Like she's just trying to spend time, waste time. Because what ends up after she leaves the restaurant, what happens is the cameras show her walking further into town, and she doesn't appear on camera for like over an hour because she's just like walking and she's not really going anywhere. And she ends up at the local bus depot. And a woman that was working the counters there told police that Mekayla asked her when the next bus to Regina was. And then the worker told Mekayla that it wasn't leaving until 5 p.m. And Mekayla left the bus depot without buying a ticket. So
And
like
that was at what time again?
that's around 11, sometime between 11 and 11:45.
Okay. So
So
that bus was too far away.
it
She couldn't
seems
wait
like
that long.
she didn't want to wait that long. Or she was going to come back or something because she ends up coming back to the area later. So
Okay.
just kind of weird. So sometime between this 11:45 time, she texts a friend and says, "I'll see you at lunch." And then she walks back to the school. She goes inside, meets up with two friends in the cafeteria, and she's in the school for a grand total of 5 minutes. She talks to her friends, tells her friends that she's taking a bus to go on vacation in Regina, and then she walks right back out 5 minutes later and goes back to town. That's it.
Uh,
That's where we're at so far.
why did she need to tell somebody that? Like, the whole purpose of her walking back to school is just to relay that
That
she's going to
story.
take a bus to Regina.
Exactly.
Which seems like her actual intention because that's what she went and
Yeah.
asked the bus depot.
But there is no, like, her guardians have no idea that she's been planning a trip to Regina. This is totally under the radar for everybody. The only people she's telling are just random friends from school.
Right. Yeah.
So
Which
it's
is
not something
why
that's actually planned.
this is why I feel like it's like some cyber somebody that like her parents wouldn't agree with,
Exactly.
like
She didn't want to tell them because they tell her she couldn't do it.
yeah,
That's the only reason teenagers keep things to themselves is because they don't want
to be told
to not
no.
be able to make the choices they want to make even if they're dumb. So, yeah, so she was literally at the school for just 5 minutes. And then she walks back into town and she ends up at a restaurant called the Trail Stop Restaurant, which is attached to the bus depot. So she walks back to the bus depot. And she stays there for a while, like a few hours. She orders lunch, so she buys food with the money that she's trying to scrape together. She buys food. And eyewitnesses say that after she ate and after she was just hanging out at the restaurant for a minute between 1 and 1:45, eyewitnesses see her leave the restaurant. And nobody remembers seeing her after that. And she's never seen on camera again. Not on any CCTV footage. And that's the last time anybody sees her, is leaving that restaurant.
You're literally gonna tell me that's it? Like that
That's
there
the
it
end of the
is?
line. That's the end of the trail. First impressions of her behavior that day are just wild. Like, I don't have any logical explanation for why. I don't understand any of it.
Well, what I'm confused is it's like I'm gonna stick with my theory. I'm gonna stick with the fact that I think there's some cyber predator trying to lure her to come away with her.
I agree.
But even then, the weird part about that is she didn't like stick it out in one place.
Yeah. You'd think if
You
she was
think if
really
it was
planning on
like
that,
he's gonna come pick me up, she would just like sit there.
or
But it's
she'd
almost
go
like
to
she
school,
knew yeah, like she'd go to school and then like he could pick her up near school but it's
or
almost
she
like
could,
she doesn't know when she's supposed to leave.
yeah, like she's
Like
waiting
she's
for him
waiting
to
around
call
for
or
a
something.
sign or for
Yeah.
a like yeah. And that part's weird to me because if you are a cyber predator, you're not going to leave it up to chance. You're not going to be like, yeah, just be out and about. I'll drive around and find you.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
that's strange.
That's not a sure thing at all. If you're being
Did they
creepy.
ever, like, pull her phone records? Was she talking to anybody or texting anybody that day
So
that was random?
this becomes a real like sticking point in the reason this investigation stalls because They do look into her phone records, and she doesn't make any actual registered phone calls through her phone number. So they conclude, because they saw her in the Wendy's talking to somebody on the phone. She made a call, but it doesn't show up on her cell phone. So they think that she used like a social media platform to make the call. You know, you can make calls with like Facebook or Snapchat or whatever. So they think she did
Yeah.
something like that. The
Okay.
problem is that they had real issues getting access to her social media accounts because of all these ridiculous privacy laws. Like, they tried, for instance, they tried to get access to her Snapchat account, and they ran into wall after wall after wall because of privacy laws. So I'm not sure if they were ever able, I don't think they were ever able to get any access to her social media accounts. Um, but they think that most of her communication was through these different apps and stuff,
Right.
because there wasn't a lot of it on her actual phone records. So that's not great. That's not great. That stuff would be important. Um, Another thing, the next morning at like 6:51 a.m. That's the time that the sources gave me. Her phone was turned off. So somebody turned it off the next
Like
morning.
on purpose. Like they like
Yeah, it
powered the
didn't
phone
it
down. It
didn't
didn't die.
die. It got turned off.
That's ominous.
Yeah, because no teenager turns off
Turns
their
off their
phone,
phone, especially when they're
especially
missing.
no. Um so that's not great, obviously. And another weird thing, after this day, after April 12th, none of her social media accounts ever had any activity on them. She never posted anything ever again. She was never shown as being online ever again. She just like dropped off the grid on her social media accounts. Just nothing. Which
Okay.
is not a thing.
So for me, this begs the question, the only alternate reason I see here is like, did she have an unhappy home life? Did she have anything in her life that was like, I mean, I know that you mentioned like bullying because of acne, but like beyond that factor, was she like her home life crappy? Was she like in a place where like running away seemed appealing?
So that is one of the major like theories here, is that she really is just a runaway. And the reason that people say this is because she had been posting in the past about being unhappy and wishing she could leave and things like that. But they were also pretty far back. Like recently, she hadn't been posting stuff like that. She had posted on Snapchat and on Instagram something to the effect that said, "I'm looking for friends because I don't have any in real life. Add me," or whatever, something like that. So, like, it seemed like she was lonely. It seemed like she wasn't super happy, which is typical for teenagers in small towns with like that struggle with bullying and things like that. Like, it's not surprising that maybe she did want to run away, which is why it's one of the theories.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I think I have my own theory, and we'll get into it a little bit, but
The
it
only
involves the
like
runaway thing.
the only thing that I find is very interesting with the runaway thing, but honestly, that's an unanswered question with the whole thing. Why was she waiting? What
Yeah,
was she waiting for? I
because
mean,
it's
I could
pretty
see
clear she
her
was waiting.
waiting. Yeah, but like it's like I could see her waiting after she goes to the bus and realizes like, dang, I got 5 hours to kill.
Yeah,
But she's waiting, like she didn't even kill time like by like being in school and trying to like lay low
seem
and go to
normal.
class for
Yeah.
a couple hours
Yep.
and see her friends and then leave, when she like it's like she's waiting the whole day for something.
Yeah.
And it's like what is she waiting for?
Like The only thing I can think of is like your predator theory is right. And like maybe she didn't know if he was coming to her or if she was going to him yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe it wasn't planned out. Maybe that's why she wanted to get the hotel room or whatever,
Yeah.
because she thought maybe he was gonna
Exactly.
come see
It was
her.
just like
And
that
then
day,
yeah,
and then it
he
was
and then
like.
he decided, hey, why don't you take a bus up to where I'm at and we can meet up or something like
The other
that.
thing that's interesting about this, though, is like you would think she would have taken some of her belongings with her.
Well, that's the reason her mom says the runaway theory is not real. Her mom said she left behind her emergency cash fund. She had cash that she left behind. Yeah. So the reason her mom doesn't think that she was a runaway, she doesn't believe the runaway theory, is because Mekayla left behind an emergency cash fund. I don't know how much money, but still any money. She seemed pretty hard up for cash. So she probably would have taken that. And she also didn't bring her acne medication. And her mom said she wouldn't have left without it because she was really self conscious about it. So it's just
Yeah, and
like,
I'm gonna assume it's probably expensive acne medication
yeah, probably not
if
like,
you have like severe acne.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I don't think, like, I don't know because there's not a lot about her home life, like, actually, like, talked about in the sources that I saw. But her mom, like, dedicated her life to finding Mekayla after she disappeared. So I have a hard time thinking it was like a super bad situation. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I
Like
wouldn't think
I'm
that
sure it
either.
wasn't perfect, but her mom has advocated for her for like almost a decade now, and she's still searching and raising award money and all of that stuff to try and find her. So I don't know. It's still possible because even if it wasn't a terrible situation, it seems like Mekayla wasn't content. Like there were some things that she didn't love about where she was, as most teenagers feel that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay.
it's always a possibility. So, anyways, back to the investigation. After a little while, I think it was a few months after her disappearance, a friend sent Mekayla a Snapchat message and it got opened. Somebody opened it.
Wait, you said a few months?
Months. Yes. And police tried to figure out if it was Mekayla who opened it or if it was a glitch in the system or what was going on. But again, Snapchat was like privacy laws and wouldn't give them
Awesome.
access to any of it. So they have no idea. They couldn't figure out where it was opened from or if it was just a glitch. Nothing. They don't know. But that happened a few months after. They also, police determined that her bank account was never touched again. No money was put in, no money was taken out ever again after April 12th. Which is just, even if she was a runaway, you got to have money to live, man. She's going to be using that money and she wasn't. So that's not a good sign. And she also didn't have her passport, so she couldn't be traveling to all the places she was talking about before she left because she couldn't leave the country without her passport. So they knew she was in the country at least somewhere, hopefully. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that's just a little weird. A little
Well,
weird.
and I keep kind of going back to the fact that she went back to school for the sole purpose of telling people where she was intending to go.
Yeah, I can't decide if she
You know
was
what I
trying to
mean?
like throw people off or make things seem normal so that people wouldn't assume something bad had happened to her,
Well, it's also
or
like, or is it in the back of her mind? It's like I don't know. I'm flying with my theory here, but if she is going somewhere with a stranger and she kind of wants somebody to know, like, where
like
she's
what the
going,
plan
just in
was.
case.
Yeah, I could see that. I
Like,
mean, that's smart.
did the police go to Regina and comb the
So
area and see
I
if she
don't
was
think they
there?
did because plot twist, they were able to tell that she had never gotten onto a bus because there was cameras everywhere and she was never seen getting onto any bus that day or the next day. They checked. So she never got on a bus ever. And she never bought a ticket because they would have known.
Okay.
So that leaves some not great options
Yeah,
for
somebody
how
picked her
she,
up.
yeah. And that's what I think. Police, there was a couple eyewitnesses that say that they saw her with a man leaving the restaurant. A
Hmm.
couple people said this. It wasn't everybody, it was just a few of the eyewitnesses. Um, but this was his description. He was described as being stocky and muscular and tall and dark haired, and that he had a very large, very prominent tattoo on his forearm of a fiery cross.
Okay.
So it's pretty
It's
specific
pretty
description.
good. Yeah, he obviously was eye catching to people.
Yeah. The thing is, this man came forward of his own volition to police, and they questioned him, they interviewed him, and they initially named, before they knew who he was, they named him as a person of interest. And then as soon as they interviewed him, like it just wasn't anything. No leads came from it. It seems like they didn't
Did
think he was
he
involved.
did he admit to seeing her that day?
We don't know because they never released anything about the interview. We have no idea. But they've never released this man's name, which makes me think that they don't think he's involved.
Well, obviously they don't. They don't want to tarnish his
Yeah.
identity. But
Or this is just like deep seated corruption and everybody's just covering for everybody. I don't know. If we're gonna
yeah,
go the
probably
conspiracy
not.
route, but yeah, so that's just a weird thing. I don't know if he actually was with her or not. Who knows? Maybe it was just eyewitnesses who saw them leaving at the same time and thought they were together. I don't know, but it seems like
Hmm.
he didn't have a connection to her. If even if
Okay.
he may have talked to her or something, but
That's
police never released what their connection was, if there was one.
yeah.
So
Okay, that's interesting.
that's just a little tidbit. Um, so yeah, that's basically all the information we have. Um, the case was initially given to Yorkton Police, and then it was passed to the General Investigation Section, which is dedicated to like major offenses, so bigger crimes. Which seems like the police thought she maybe just didn't run away, like maybe something else had happened. Not
Yeah.
sure. Um, Throughout the course of the investigation, police watched hours and hours of surveillance footage, and they
Oh
conducted
yeah.
like dozens of interviews. They tried to find potential witnesses. That's how they put together that very detailed timeline that I just told you about her day. But they just kept running into issues because it seemed like most of their leads were going to come from social media, and social media was not cooperating with them in any way, shape, or form. And so they asked her friends and things like, what social media did she tend to use? Like, how did she communicate with people? And her friends were able to be like, she used these apps, and she used one specifically called Kick. It's like a WhatsApp, but it didn't take off.
Uh, okay.
It was just like a messaging platform, but like they weren't able to access any of her accounts, so it never got very far. Her mom gave police like the login information that she had that she could find, but it didn't
Yeah.
get them like very far.
That's what's
So,
really wild about social media is it's like it lives beyond you and nobody can touch it.
yeah,
Because
it's
unless you have
crazy.
like given people your passwords and everything, it just sits there. Nobody has access to it. Nobody can take it down. It's like I have like friends on Facebook that have passed away,
Mhm.
and sometimes I like will see their profile and I'm like, somebody take that down. It's
Take
eerie.
that down. It's just
It makes
creepy.
them look like they're still alive,
But they're not. Yeah,
but
it's
they're not.
not.
And it's kind of crazy. I
It
just
is
think that there
crazy.
should be laws that like I mean, I get protecting people's privacy, but I think after so much time has passed and they've been dead, that I feel like they're or like pronounced dead or missing or like unused. I feel like if it's part of a police investigation, I feel like it should be law that they should have access to those.
Or it should be like one of those things that pops up when you're setting up an account that's like if you, in the case that you are missing,
Or
like
part of like yeah,
give us as a
or a
corporation
victim of a
permission.
crime.
Yeah, give us as a corporation permission to give your information or your account to police. Like
Yeah.
something to that extent. You know, there should be something like that. But that's why everybody should make an If I Go Missing folder that has all of this stuff written down somewhere so that if you
Yeah.
ever get kidnapped or something, this stuff is just in one place.
And I should do that too, but the other thing that sucks though about an if I go missing folder is like it constantly has to be updated.
That's true.
Like how often do you have to change passwords or move, like your assets around or
Yeah, that's
this
true.
never stays in one place, so
It's not
sometimes it
quite
feels
as
like not
straightforward.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the social media thing really seemed to be a hindrance to police. And 3 months after her disappearance, it was still like literally zero leads, nothing, no progress, no signs of her. And at this point, they sent out a child search alert, which is basically an Amber Alert, to three of the provinces in Canada. And like, I guess that's great, but also it's been 3 months, so I don't know how helpful that's going to be at this stage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like maybe if they think that she's still alive in one of those three provinces, maybe somebody's seen her, something like that, I guess. But they got no solid leads from that. And then the case was passed on to the historical case unit a year later, and they did another Amber Alert, um, and they sent it out to all of Canada, the whole country, not just a few of the provinces, and they still got nothing. And so, a year after her disappearance, this was August of 2017. I guess it was like a year and a half after her disappearance. They did a ground grid search in the area around the high school, like the wooded area around the high school. I don't know why they searched this particular area. Um,
Yeah, that is interesting. Probably because they thought she never left, right? Because they never
yeah,
saw her leaving.
yeah,
So they had to assume if something happened to her, she would have been close.
yeah. I mean, I guess that makes sense, but it's also like why the high school? Because she didn't go
Yeah,
missing from the high school. She went missing from the
that.
bus depot. But I also
Yeah,
don't know
that's
the layout of the
interesting.
town. I don't know how close the high school was to all of the stuff that we mentioned. It couldn't have been
Yeah,
that far because she was getting around relatively quickly
yeah,
between
right.
things. So, who knows? But anyways, other than that one guy, the the guy that remains unnamed, they never had any
Fiery cross
suspects.
tattoo.
Yeah, fiery cross tattoo guy. They never named any suspects in the case or announced any other persons of interest. Um, like literally, it just seemed like she just vanished into thin air. Like nobody knows what happened. And there have been like reported sightings of her, and I put that in quotation marks because this happens in a lot of missing persons cases where people claim that they've seen somebody that's missing and they don't actually know, or they're just trying to screw around with people or the investigation. So there were a couple of those things. Somebody told police that they'd seen Mekayla in Vancouver. This was like 6 months after she went missing. And her mother went to Vancouver and started a poster campaign. She just started putting missing posters up of Mekayla to try and find her, but
Oh, that
nothing came from
sucks.
it, which is just sad because it's like her mom was clearly like desperate for information and to try and find her.
Well, yeah, this is her daughter.
Yeah, it's terrible. And then in 2017, police believed that Mekayla had been seen at an event at the Grey Eagle Entertainment Center, but they weren't able to confirm if she was there or not. No solid leads came from that. And then in 2019, a man called Mekayla's mother and said he'd seen Mekayla in Edmonton. Um, Obviously, he had not because they did not find anything. So there's just like a bunch of these sorts of like supposed sightings, but there's never actually leads that come from any of that. So that's just always a bummer for the families that are like holding on to hope that they'll
Yeah.
hear news, and then people are
Well,
like, maybe I saw
especially
her. I
in
don't
a
know.
case like this where it seems almost more likely that she is alive.
Yeah, like
You
it's a
know?
possibility. Yep, it's a bummer. And over the years, like I said, Mekayla's family put together fundraising events and things to raise money. In 2017, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children joined in the search efforts, and they donated money. They had anonymous donors over the years add to the reward fund, eventually raising like up to $100,000 for information that led to Mekayla's safe return, but nobody ever came forward. There was never any information and no sign of Mekayla. And basically, like, that's the end of it. There are theories about what happened. The first one, like we said, is that she ran away. Police have been very clear that there's no evidence of foul play in this case. And that could mean that they don't think that she was hurt, but I think it means that there's not enough evidence to prove that she was hurt. I don't think
Yeah.
police think she just ran off and never made contact with anybody from her old life or touched her bank accounts or social media ever again. I think that they think something probably did happen to her, but they don't have enough evidence to say that it was foul play. So that's just what I think. But police can't say, like, yeah, she was killed or kidnapped or whatever because there's no evidence of that.
Right.
Personally, I think Lila's theory about the cyber predator is the most likely one. I think she was leaving town for sure. I don't know if she was planning on like running away forever, but I think she was planning on leaving town. Like without a doubt. I think
Yeah.
she was planning on leaving town.
Well, and for me, I think it goes like one of two ways. I think they're definitely obvious. I mean, to me, it seems obvious that there had to be somebody else involved. And it was probably a cyber person since nobody in her life, you know, had that kind of contact with her or communication with her that they could track. But I mean, I could see it going one of two ways, which is like I could see her running away with this person and something happening to her. But on the flip side, like if you want to play, devil's advocate or maybe just hopeful advocate, maybe she legitimately wanted nothing to do with her whole old life after she ran away and she actually was really happy or what she thought was happy with this person. And so she actually did, like cease communication and just take off. But the hard part for me to believe about that is I don't think it would have lasted that
No.
long. I could see it happening for like a year or maybe two, but at some point you're going to want to like, "Hey mom and dad, I'm alive."
Yeah. Well, especially because like they never stopped looking for her. She was in the media. Like
Yeah.
this was a big deal.
Yeah.
Like she would have known that they were looking for her. She would have known if she was still out there. And I think that once she realized that, I think she would have probably come forward and been like, I'm fine.
I'm
I
fine.
just
I'm
don't
just
like my
here.
family.
Yeah.
Like something like that. But another reason that people think that it was an online predator is that, like I said, she sent that message out that was like looking for friends because I don't have any in real life, add me,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
People think that that was basically just like a beacon of light for all of the predators out there trying to
Well,
find
it
vulnerable
is,
people to prey on.
isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's
I mean,
terrible.
that's what it is,
Yeah,
sadly.
and somebody took
So,
advantage of her vulnerability and her loneliness and they contacted her. Police obviously have no records of this because they don't have any access to anything. But this is like the most prominent theory is that by for whatever reason this person somehow convinced her to meet up with them or they were going to come to her or whatever. I think that she was waiting for this person in the Wendy's to decide what the plan was. I think that's why she stuck around in that Wendy's and she was on the phone and texting. I think she was trying to figure out what the plan was. And that's why directly after she like went to the Wendy's for the third time, she went to the bus depot because she like the plan was decided. She was going to go to Regina. That's why she told her friend, "I'm going to Regina on vacation and take a bus." I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah, it
at
seems
that point
likely.
in the day, she stopped like going to pawn shops and random Wendy's and school, and she went to the bus depot restaurant and she just sat there for like 3 hours before leaving.
Yeah.
I think at that point, either the person that she was going to meet up with decided that he was going to pick her up from the bus depot, or I think that maybe she tried to hitchhike instead of waiting for the bus. Maybe there was somebody at this bus depot that was like, I can give you a ride. It seems crazy because that would mean that two predators were in the same general area and they targeted the same person.
Yeah, but
But
it's
stranger
possible.
things have happened, honestly.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. I think that maybe somebody picked her up and she decided it would be cheaper and it would be faster if I just went with this person who's already going to Regina. And then they were bad. Or they weren't bad and she did end up in Regina and the person that was actually the online predator was bad. So who knows?
Yeah. I will say that the one thing that I do find wild is that the police never went to Regina. Like if that really
And maybe they
happened.
did, but I didn't see if
Because
they
that
did or
seems like
not.
a pretty solid lead. Like even if like that you can't see her getting on a bus and going there, like that is where she said she was gonna be, and she disappeared
It's
from town.
also hard because
So
I don't know that they would know where to start looking in Regina. Regina is infinitely bigger than Yorktown or Yorkton or whatever where she lived. I don't know if that they knew where to start looking. Like,
yeah.
do they start at the bus station? How many bus stations are there?
Yeah.
Like,
No, that's probably
I
true.
don't know. So they probably tried. I'm sure that they tried to some extent, but I don't know how successful they can be without more information. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other theory, and this one seems less likely to me, but it's just like a horrible possibility, is that she became a victim of human trafficking. Um,
Oh.
in 2019, so this is like 3 years after her disappearance, the government put out a report, the Canadian government put out a report about human trafficking problems in this area. And it cited Winnipeg, Edmonton, Calgary, and Regina as like major hubs for this human trafficking activity. So
So
some people
the
theorize
predator could have been.
could have been recruiting, if you want to put it that way, which is
Yeah.
gross, for human trafficking, which is also possible and is also really horrible. There's
And would
obviously no,
explain why you would never heard from her again, even if she didn't die
yeah, exactly.
immediately.
Because the
So,
thing is, like, you'd think, and this happens all the time, where people go missing and their bodies are never found. So it's not impossible, but you'd think that they would have found her body at some point. Seems likely that they would have found her body if it was just like a regular Joe online
yeah.
predator guy, you
I
know?
mean, that's what I would think. For
But
sure. So,
people do things all the time and end up somehow hiding murder victims' bodies. So who knows what happened to her? It's just wild to me that she was never caught on camera again, ever, after
yeah.
she left this restaurant.
Yeah,
They
it's
were able to
really.
track her entire day down to like the minute on cameras. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden she just vanishes? She had to have gotten in somebody's car. That was the only explanation to me. So,
Huh. That is
anyways,
wild.
that is the story of Mekayla Bali. It's been 8 years since she disappeared,
Wow.
and it's just a weird case.
It's really
So
sad.
it is sad. It is really sad. Yeah.
It's really sad when the
Hopefully,
best case scenario is that she was human trafficked and still alive.
that's
It's
really, yeah.
really rough when that's your best
Yep.
case. So,
A lot of the sources I looked at were like everybody thought she was a runaway because that seemed like the most likely scenario, but the more years that passed, the less
yeah.
people believed that because it just doesn't make sense in context with everything. So,
Yeah.
anyways, um that's that's all we've got. Hopefully she gets found someday. We'll keep crossing our
We can
fingers.
only hope.
But yeah, anyways, tip of the week. Make an if I go missing folder or something. Make sure people can access your social media and your phone and stuff if you go missing. Especially like in these days where your device is a GPS basically. Like I feel like that's crucial. I want people to have my Apple ID and access to my phone,
All of
all of
it.
it. Because if I go missing, I want to be able to have a GPS location turned on that people can log into to find me. So
There you go.
that's
Good
my tip of the
point.
week. Do it.
Okay. Stay frosty, y'all. Till next time.
Bye.